Welcome to our channel. If you like camping stories, hit subscribe and join our campfire community. Enjoy listening. I was hiking alone in northern Finland, following an old map I bought at a small village store. The map showed a river cutting through a valley called Old River. But when I reached it, there was nothing. No water, no stream, just a dry hollow in the earth. The ground looked smooth, like something had once flowed there but stopped long ago. I set up my tent on the ridge, just before sunset. It was quiet. Too quiet for the open forest. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of rushing water. It was close. Too close. When I stepped outside, the dry valley below shimmered under the moonlight. And there it was, a full river, flowing fast and silent, but with no sound of splashing or spray. I walked down slowly. The air felt heavy, and the closer I got, the more I noticed. The river wasn't moving. It only looked like it was. The surface shimmered like glass, but when I bent to touch it, my reflection rippled first, before my hand even reached the water. Then, it looked back at me. Not my face, but my reflection's mouth, whispering words I didn't say. I ran back to my tent, and by morning, the valley was dry again. But my boots were still wet. Last summer, I went camping near an old forest reserve in Tasmania. The area was mostly empty. Just a few marked trails and a faded sign about wildlife. On my second night, as I was setting up my tent, I noticed another one across the clearing, bright yellow, half hidden by trees. I felt relieved. It's strange how a stranger's tent can make you feel safer. After dark, I saw a lantern flicker inside the yellow tent. Then a man's voice, calm, steady, talking. It sounded like he was on a phone call, but there was no signal out here. Later, around midnight, the talking stopped. I looked over. The lantern was still glowing, but I couldn't see anyone's shadow. In the morning, the yellow tent was gone. No footprints, no packed ground. Only one thing. A circle of grass flattened, shaped like someone had been sitting there all night, facing my tent. I usually go camping to escape everything. Phones, people, even roads. Last year, I found a small trail in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. It wasn't on most maps, which made it perfect. The first day was normal. I hiked for hours, set up my tent near a small clearing, and listened to the wind moving through the trees. I didn't see another soul. That night, I slept heavily, wrapped in my sleeping bag, thinking I was completely alone. Around midnight, I woke to a faint sound, like someone dragging a stick along the ground. I froze. The forest was quiet again. Maybe an animal, I told myself, or a branch falling. By the second night, the sound had grown louder. It wasn't random anymore. It had a rhythm. Slow, deliberate, like footsteps following a path. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. But every time I stopped moving, it stopped too. Every time I walked, it resumed, keeping pace behind me. On the third day, I decided to hike further, hoping to find another trail or maybe a ranger station. As I walked, I realized the sound wasn't behind me anymore. It was above. Not like in the trees exactly, but everywhere. Like the wind had learned to mimic footsteps. I checked my GPS, but it said I was moving in a straight line. The map looked right, yet the clearing I thought I camped near had shifted. I could swear I had passed it, but it wasn't there. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my tent, listening. The dragging sound circled the camp, slow, steady. Then I heard something else. Soft breathing, close, but not mine. I zipped the tent flap, turned my flashlight on, and scanned the perimeter. Nothing. I spent hours watching, too afraid to sleep, until finally, I convinced myself it was in my head. The next morning, the clearing was gone. Not shifted. Gone. Trees and bushes where I had camped the night before. The trail disappeared. Even my footprints were buried under leaves, though the wind hadn't moved. I packed quickly and followed the GPS back, but the trail twisted in impossible ways. Every path led me deeper into the same forest. By the fourth night, I stopped trying to escape. I camped in the middle of a dense grove. The sound came again, but it was different this time, like someone whispering my name from just outside the tent. I didn't respond. I didn't move. When morning came, the clearing reappeared. My tent was in exactly the same spot I had pitched it the first day, but the forest felt wrong. Tighter, darker, like it remembered what I had done there. I left immediately, but even now, months later, sometimes I hear dragging sounds behind me when I'm walking alone, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, I swear I hear soft whispers saying my name. I've been camping all over the world, but nothing prepared me for what happened last summer in the Scottish Highlands. I was hiking alone, looking for a place to set up camp for the night. I'd passed a small loch on the map, and it seemed perfect. Quiet, flat ground, surrounded by low hills. By late afternoon, I reached it. The loch looked ordinary at first. Mist curled over the surface, the kind that makes the world look softer, quieter, like a painting. I pitched my tent on a small ridge overlooking the water. The light was fading, and the air smelled like wet stone and moss. After eating, I wandered closer to the water. That's when I noticed something strange. Across the loch, on the far shore, there was another campsite. A fire burned low and steady, but no one was moving. No smoke from cooking, no figure tending it, just the flames, perfectly still. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe someone had left it unattended. Night fell fast in the highlands. By the time I got back to my tent, darkness had swallowed everything. That's when I heard the first sound, a faint tapping, like someone striking a stick against the ground, echoing from across the loch. It was slow, and it was coming closer. I froze. The tapping stopped when I stopped moving. Started again when I stepped toward the ridge. My flashlight swept across the loch, but the far shore looked empty. Then I noticed the reflection. Not the fire, but another shape moving along the opposite bank. Tall, thin. Impossible to make out in the mist, but it was there, always at the edge of the flames. I retreated to my tent, zipped it tight, and tried to convince myself it was nothing. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shape. Every time I opened them, the tapping began again, now inside my tent, or so it sounded. Morning didn't help. I packed up, decided to leave immediately. When I reached the far side of the loch, the campsite was gone. No fire, no burned logs, no flattened ground. Nothing. It was as if it had never existed. I checked my map. There was nothing marked there at all. The loch looked smaller, narrower than I remembered. I tried to hike out, but the trail twisted in ways it hadn't the day before. Hills I thought I had crossed were behind me again. Rocks I passed were in different positions. I began to feel like the forest itself was moving around me. On the third night, I finally gave in. I pitched a new campsite in a grove of pines. Exhausted, I fell asleep almost immediately. That's when I heard it again. Not tapping this time. Footsteps. Slow, wet, squishing steps circling my tent. Sometimes close, sometimes far, but always deliberate. I didn't move. I couldn't. I listened until dawn. When I woke, the ground outside my tent was perfectly dry. No footprints at all. Even the grass I'd pressed down to pitch the tent had returned to its original position. I packed as fast as I could and didn't look back. I made it to the nearest village a day later. I tried to explain what happened, but the locals just smiled politely and warned me, some locks have memories, best not to camp there alone. I still think about that night. The loch looks normal in photos. The map shows it like any other place. But sometimes, when I hike alone, I swear I hear slow, deliberate footsteps behind me, and I never look back. I've always preferred remote campsites, the kind where the map ends and the trail fades into wilderness. Last autumn, I found one deep in the forests of northern Maine. The GPS signal was weak, the trail rough, but it promised solitude. I arrived in late afternoon, carrying only my pack and a small tent. The forest was dense, older than I'd imagined, with thick moss on the trees and a faint smell of damp earth. I picked a small clearing, set up my tent, and lit a fire. The quiet was so intense that even the chirping of distant birds seemed loud. Around midnight, I woke to a strange glow through the trees. At first, I thought it was a trick of the firelight reflecting on the mist, but the glow moved, slowly, drifting between the trunks like it was searching. Curious, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The glow didn't react to my light, didn't seem startled. It hovered just beyond the clearing, faint but steady. I called out, but no sound returned. Over the next hour, the glow came closer, and then I realized it wasn't a campfire. It didn't flicker. It wasn't natural. It hovered at about head height, moving smoothly, almost deliberately, always staying just at the edge of my vision. I went back into my tent, zipped it tight, and tried to sleep. The glow stayed outside. Occasionally, I thought I saw shapes in the mist, taller than a man, or maybe I imagined it. Every time I peeked, the shapes vanished. Around 3, I heard it, a soft humming, low, almost like someone singing a tune you've never heard, but feel you should know. The sound wasn't coming from one direction. It surrounded me. I couldn't tell if it was inside the tent or out. I stayed motionless, terrified. The humming rose and fell in pitch, as if whatever it was communicating. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the light and sound vanished. The forest returned to its normal, suffocating silence. By dawn, the clearing was normal again. The mist had lifted, and the forest looked ordinary, but I felt different, uneasy. The trail back to civilization was confusing. Trees and rocks I thought I passed were in different positions. When I returned home, I told friends, but no one believed me. Even the photos I took of the clearing that night showed nothing. Just dark trees, faint mist, a normal campsite.